My name is Celeste, I'm 36, and this year, I didn't spend Christmas with my family because my mother told me I wasn't welcome anymore. She said it like a weather report. Cold. Final. They thought I'd cry. Instead, I stopped paying for the house they were living in, the one I had quietly kept alive for years. But what they didn't know is that I had the receipts. Before I tell you everything, tell me, where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. I live in a small apartment outside Boulder, Colorado. The air here is crisp, clean, filled with the scent of pine and distant mountains. My apartment, though modest, is a haven of quiet order, a stark contrast to the chaos of my past. It's a sanctuary where the only sounds are the rustle of leaves outside my window and the gentle hum of my server. Every item has its place, every surface is uncluttered, a deliberate counterpoint to the emotional disarray I so often felt within my family dynamic. This meticulousness isn't just a habit, it's a form of therapy, a way to exert control over a small corner of my world when so much else felt beyond my grasp. I work in data security, a field that demands precision, logic, and meticulous attention to detail. My days are spent navigating complex systems, analyzing patterns, finding the hidden vulnerabilities. It's a job that perfectly suits my quiet nature, my preference for facts over noise. I live mostly in quiet routines, each day a deliberate act of building a life that truly belongs to me. Most people don't know that for 3 years, I've been covering the mortgage, utilities, and property taxes on the family house in Denver. I did it to help my mom after she retired early, her pension not quite covering the sprawling costs of the old place. I did it because that house held my childhood memories, the echoes of my late father's laughter, and foolishly, I thought, it held my place in the family. It was a tangible link, a quiet investment in a belonging I yearned for, a desperate attempt to solidify my elusive position within their lives. My financial support was invisible, a silent act of profound self-sacrifice. Each month, the money would just go out. Quietly. Consistently. A direct debit from my account, a quiet hum in the background of their lives, ensuring their comfort, their stability. My hands, accustomed to the delicate precision of my work, would simply schedule the payment, my heart aching with the silent hope that one day, my steady presence, my unwavering support, would finally be seen, finally be valued. It was a silent plea, a whispered promise I made to myself. This time, maybe this time, they'll notice. They'll see the effort, the care, the profound act of love hidden beneath the numbers. I often wondered if they ever questioned where the money came from, if a fleeting thought ever crossed their minds that it was my sacrifice. But the answer was always silence, a heavy quietness that only reinforced my feeling of invisibility. It felt like I was constantly giving a piece of myself, a vital part of my financial security, into a void that offered no recognition, no appreciation, just endless consumption. But I've never really belonged. Not truly. From my earliest memories, I was the too intense one. The girl who liked facts more than fashion, silence more than selfies. My questions were too sharp, my observations too direct, my emotions too deep to be easily categorized or dismissed. I was often met with a dismissive wave of the hand or a patronizing smile, told to lighten up or stop overthinking. My younger sister, Kendra, was the soft one, the peacemaker. The one Mom always called the glue, her voice filled with adoration, a warmth that never quite extended to me. Kendra's gentle nature, her effortless charm, was always celebrated, her every move met with approval. I, in contrast, was the edge. The one blamed when family tensions rose, when uncomfortable truths surfaced. My logical approach was deemed cold, a harsh contrast to their preferred emotional meandering. My quietness, moody, rather than simply reflective. My need for honesty, disruptive, as if the truth itself was an inconvenience to their carefully constructed reality. I learned early on that my authentic self was not welcome, that I needed to conform or be cast out. I often felt like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit, a dissonant note in their carefully orchestrated symphony of family life. I learned to minimize myself, to dim my light, to retreat into my own thoughts, constructing a fortress of solitude where I could be truly myself without fear of judgment. So when I started making good money, when my career in data security began to flourish, providing me with the stability I had never truly known, I tried to earn love the only way I knew, through tangible support, through financial stability, through quiet, unwavering service. I believed that by providing this bedrock, this invisible foundation, I could finally earn my place, finally belong. It was a silent, desperate pursuit of a validation that was never freely given, never truly earned, only taken. Every dollar I spent on them was a silent plea, a misguided attempt to buy the acceptance that words and presence alone could never seem to achieve. I deluded myself into believing that money could bridge the chasm of emotional distance, that my financial contributions would somehow translate into emotional currency. The approach of Christmas always filled me with a complex mixture of longing and dread. It was a time for family, for warmth, for belonging. A time when my quiet contributions would hopefully be seen, when the family unit would supposedly solidify, making my hidden role visible. This year, though, the usual festive anticipation was replaced by a growing chill, an insidious premonition that something was fundamentally wrong. I didn't get a text about Christmas plans. No meticulously organized spreadsheet detailing who was bringing what dish, a family tradition that Mom usually enforced with military precision. No enthusiastic group message about gift ideas, no back and forth about holiday menus. Not even a casual, "What dish are you bringing?" My heart, usually a beacon of hope that flickered stubbornly through years of neglect, began to thrum with a dull, persistent unease, a cold not forming in my stomach. I tried to deny it, of course. To rationalize. They're busy. It's early. They'll remember. They always do. I called my sister, my voice light, casual, trying to glean information without betraying the raw anxiety that was gnawing at me. She confirmed it, her voice airy, dismissive, completely devoid of any empathy. "Oh, it's just smaller this year, Celeste," Kendra said, her tone devoid of remorse or even concern, as if she were talking about a slight change in the dinner menu. "Just us. You know, less hassle." The words, so seemingly innocent, were a crushing blow, confirming my worst fears, solidifying the sickening realization that I had been deliberately excluded. The casualness of her delivery made it even more painful, a testament to how little my feelings mattered to them. Then came the voicemail from Mom. It arrived later that evening, her voice calm, devoid of emotion, like a weather report delivering grim news, concise, objective, utterly chilling. "We all agreed," she stated, each syllable clear, precise, utterly final. "You're not welcome this year, Celeste. It's just smaller. Family only. No explanation. No sadness. No regret. Just a cold, hard verdict, delivered with the clinical detachment of a judge reading a sentence. My stomach clenched into a tight, aching knot, a physical manifestation of the emotional trauma. My breath hitched, caught in my throat. Family only. Was I not family? Was my quiet love, my endless support, my financial lifeline, not enough to count as family? The question echoed in the cavern of my mind, a tormenting refrain that offered no answer, only deeper pain. That night, alone in my quiet apartment, the vast, impersonal silence of my surroundings amplified the roar of disbelief in my ears. The city lights outside my window seemed to mock me with their festive glow. I opened my banking app, its screen a stark, cold blue, mirroring the chill that had settled in my soul. I stared at the scheduled mortgage payment, $1,382. It had always just gone out. Quietly. Consistently. For 3 years. A steady, predictable outflow of my hard-earned money, a silent testament to my unwavering commitment. But suddenly, it felt wrong. Profoundly, deeply wrong. It felt like feeding a hungry machine that had never seen me, never acknowledged my existence, never cherished my contribution. It was feeding a machine that had just locked me out, coldly, definitively. The financial weight of the payment felt like a profound injustice, a grotesque parody of love, a hollow echo of my desperate attempts to buy my way into their hearts. The profound sense of being unwanted, of being utterly disposable, settled over me like a suffocating shroud, chilling me to the bone. My heart, once a beacon of hope, felt like it had been turned to stone, a cold, heavy lump in my chest. The emotional fallout was a silent implosion, not an explosion. There were no shouts, no tears, no dramatic outbursts. Just a quiet, internal collapse. I scrolled through old photos on my phone, my fingers cold and numb, tracing the familiar faces of my family, looking for any sign, any shred of evidence that I truly belonged. Birthdays I wasn't invited to, captured in smiling snapshots where my absence was a glaring void. Dinners where they cropped me out, a missing limb in their perfect tableau. My name wasn't even on the gift tags of the presents I sent, not the expensive ones, not the thoughtful ones, the ones I had chosen with such care. Just from all of us, a collective anonymity that erased my individual effort, my love, my very presence. Each image, each missing detail, was a fresh wound, confirming a long-held, terrifying suspicion. I had always been invisible. I had always been an afterthought, a convenient resource, never truly seen, never truly valued. And still, despite the undeniable evidence of their callousness, I felt the insidious pull of ingrained habit, a lifetime of conditioning urging me to maintain the status quo. I had kept paying. Not out of obligation, not truly, but out of hope. A desperate, foolish hope that maybe one day my unwavering support, my unseen sacrifice, would somehow pierce through their self-absorption, their profound blindness. That maybe, just maybe, someone would finally say she mattered. Her love was real. She was there for us. The fragility of that hope, now exposed in the harsh light of their cold exclusion, was devastating. The understanding that it was futile, that my efforts had been utterly meaningless to them, a mere transaction without emotional weight, was a crushing weight. My eyes burned, a dry, stinging sensation, but still no tears came. The grief was too profound, too cold for outward expression, a frozen lake within my soul. I had reached rock bottom, not with a dramatic cry, but with a quiet, agonizing devastation. My world, once defined by the desperate pursuit of their approval, fractured, leaving me adrift in a void of profound loneliness. The decision was not born of rage. Rage would have been a passionate, fleeting outburst, a burst of heat quickly extinguished. This was colder, more precise. It was a profound, unwavering act of self-preservation, forged in the crucible of their cold exclusion, tempered by years of unspoken pain. 2 days before Christmas, the festive lights of the city twinkling outside my window, a cruel contrast to the dark interior of my apartment, I sat at my laptop. My fingers, steady and resolute, moved with a newfound purpose to my banking app. I found the auto payment for the mortgage. The one I had meticulously scheduled for years, the one that represented so much of my quiet effort and hope. And I canceled it. The click of the mouse was silent, yet it resonated like a clap of thunder, shaking the very foundations of their comfort, a tiny tremor that would soon become an earthquake. I then shut off the utilities to the house. The electricity, the gas, the water. One by one, these were silent acts of severance, each click of the mouse, each tap on the screen, a severing of an umbilical cord I had unknowingly provided. It felt less like an act of revenge and more like a necessary amputation, cutting off a limb that had become diseased and parasitic. Then I gathered every receipt. Not randomly, not in a fit of pique. Meticulously. Every single payment for the mortgage, painstakingly recorded. Every utility bill, itemized and dated. Every grocery delivery, showing the food they ate, paid for by me. Every repair invoice for the house, even the one for the new backsplash Mom had said was too trendy for their classic kitchen, a subtle jab I had silently absorbed and paid for without complaint. I created a clean, time-stamped exit file, a digital ledger of my years of unseen, unacknowledged financial support, a stark and undeniable record of their entitlement. My fingers flew across the keyboard, The clicks of the keys a rhythmic counterpoint to the quiet revolution unfolding within me, a methodical compilation of truths. I sent it, quietly, to 3 key entities. First, to the loan company, ensuring the mortgage would fall into delinquency, a consequence they would not be able to ignore. Second, to the city tax office, so the property taxes would become overdue, triggering public record notifications. And third, to the local nonprofit that had featured my parents' supposed family generosity in a glowing local article, the one where they boasted about their contributions to the community, their perfect lives, a facade built on my silent sacrifices. The facts would speak for themselves, loudly and unequivocally. No screaming. No warning. No dramatic farewell. Just truth. Delivered with precision, with quiet, undeniable force. The profound internal shift from victim to agent of change was complete. The air in my apartment, once heavy with the ghosts of past expectations, now hummed with the exhilarating scent of hard-won freedom, a clean, crisp air of self-determination. My silence was now my strength, my strategy, my most powerful weapon, far more potent than any shouted accusation. My decision was not about vengeance in the traditional sense. It was about reclaiming my peace, my resources, my very self, from those who had taken so much without ever truly seeing me, without ever valuing my intrinsic worth beyond my utility. Christmas Eve. The city outside my apartment window glowed with the festive lights of celebration, a distant, mocking hum that I no longer felt compelled to join. I stayed home. Not in sorrow, not in bitterness, but in a profound sense of newfound peace. I made myself a bowl of warm, comforting tomato soup, its savory aroma filling my quiet kitchen, a simple, nourishing act of self-care. I wrapped a small, thoughtful gift for my neighbor's kid, a tangible act of genuine connection, a small gesture of kindness that felt more real than any forced family gathering. My apartment felt small, cozy, but profoundly, wonderfully mine. The hours passed, imbued with a quiet peace I had rarely known, a serenity that settled deep within my bones. At 6:14 p.m., my digital clock glowed in the dim light, a stark, precise indicator of time's relentless march. And then, the house went dark. Not my apartment. Their house. The house I had kept alive for 3 years, a silent lifeline. The house that had just locked me out. The power grid, oblivious to family drama, to betrayal, to years of hidden support, had done its work. The moment was precise. The consequence immediate. My heart gave a profound, quiet thrum of satisfaction, not vindictive, but deeply, unequivocally affirming. It was the sound of a system correcting itself, of balance being restored. My phone, which had been silent from their end for weeks, a testament to their disinterest, suddenly came alive. Calls. Texts. Frantic. Insistent. Celeste, did you do this? My mother's text flashed on the screen, raw with panic, laced with a dawning horror, the full weight of their situation finally hitting them. My brother's name popped up, followed by urgent voicemails, his voice strained with confusion and anger. My phone vibrated relentlessly, a cacophony of their sudden desperation. I didn't answer. I didn't reply. They already knew. The questions, the panic, the desperation, it was all confirmation. Confirmation of their profound dependence. Confirmation of their absolute obliviousness, their shocking lack of awareness of the invisible hand that had sustained them for so long. They thought I'd always keep giving. They thought I'd always be there, a silent, dependable resource, an endless well of support. They never imagined I'd stop. Never imagined I'd withdraw the invisible lifeline I had provided, believing it to be their inherent right. The sudden absence of electricity, of heat, of running water, the raw discomfort of it, the shock of being cut off, was the immediate, undeniable consequence of their neglect, a harsh lesson delivered by reality itself. My silence, in response to their frantic pleas, was a powerful, eloquent reply, a solid wall built from years of their indifference. The dynamics had shifted. Irrevocably. The power was now mine. My quiet defiance, my invisible labor, had now become a tangible, undeniable force, a visible absence that spoke volumes. The fallout for my family was swift, brutal, and profoundly public. Their initial panic escalated into full-blown chaos. The house, dark and cold, quickly fell into disarray, a physical reflection of their crumbling control. Bills piled up, warnings of foreclosure arrived, the very financial burdens I had meticulously managed for years now suffocating them. Missed appointments, unmade phone calls, unorganized schedules, the small, critical tasks I had quietly performed now went undone, revealing the extent of their incompetence. Their carefully constructed image, once their greatest currency in the community, began to visibly crack under the relentless pressure. Local news, alerted by the defaulted payments to the tax office and the nonprofit, my anonymous tips had found their mark, picked up the story. The community, once quick to praise their public virtue, their seeming generosity, began to whisper, then to openly question their integrity, their true character laid bare. I signed the final transfer papers. My pen, smooth and precise, moved over the official documents, severing the last legal ties to their house, to their narrative, to the burden that had weighed on me for so long. The real estate clerk, a kind woman with tired eyes, looked at me with a hint of curiosity, perhaps sensing the gravity of the moment. "You're removing your financial liability?" she asked, her voice gentle, almost hesitant. "Yes," I said, my voice calm, steady, infused with a profound sense of purpose. "No, I'm reclaiming my peace." It was a powerful, definitive statement, a final act of liberation, a declaration of independence. I didn't burn bridges, I just stopped laying bricks on roads that never led back to me. Roads that led only to their demands, their indifference, their profound lack of reciprocity, their endless consumption of my resources. My detachment wasn't vengeful, it was absolute, a clean break. My parents and brother struggled, visibly and painfully. Their social circle, once vibrant and adoring, filled with effusive praise, became strangely muted. Fewer invitations. Less boasting. Their desperate attempts to regain control of the narrative, to spin their public image, were met with skepticism, with a quiet, knowing silence that was more damning than any accusation. My brother, Mark, texted me, his voice raw with frustration and a hint of desperation. "You ruined everything." My mom called, her voice tight with fury, blaming me, accusing me of coldness, of selfishness, as if I owed them an endless supply of self-sacrifice. I didn't engage. I didn't respond. I didn't explain. My silence was my boundary, my strength, a powerful shield that finally protected my heart. I spent New Year's at a shelter, volunteering, serving hot cocoa to families who had lost everything, but whose eyes still held a spark of resilience. The warmth of their gratitude, the genuine smiles, the shared humanity, were a stark contrast to the coldness of my family, a balm to my long-aching soul. I started an online page, Holidays for the Left Out. A simple concept, a space for people who felt unseen, unheard, unheld during the holidays, a digital haven for the emotionally marginalized. Within weeks, it had grown to 80,000 members, a vibrant, compassionate community of individuals who had known the sting of familial exclusion, who understood the unique pain of being an outsider. Families, complete strangers, invited me to their holiday dinners, their voices filled with genuine warmth, with understanding, offering a belonging I had always craved. Churches reached out, offering support, asking me to speak, to share my story. I was building a new family, a chosen family, rooted in empathy and shared vulnerability, a true home for my spirit, where my value was intrinsic, not transactional. My parents? They watched. From a distance. Their silence, once a weapon they wielded to dismiss and control me, was now their prison, a self-imposed isolation. They saw the outpouring of support I received, the thriving community I had built, the purpose that now defined my life, a life vibrant and full. They never said a word of apology, never admitted fault, never acknowledged the depth of their neglect, their years of taking. Until spring. when a typed letter arrived. From Mom. Her handwriting was shaky, her words restrained, devoid of her usual control, lacking the imperiousness I had grown accustomed to. "Are we still family?" it read, a desperate, almost childlike plea, stripped bare of all pretense. My heart, now a fortress of self-worth, felt no bitterness, no desire for retribution. Only clarity. I replied, my fingers steady, my words precise, echoing the truth she had avoided for so long. "You tell me." The power dynamic had shifted, irrevocably. The truth I had spoken, once a lonely cry in the dark, had rewritten our entire story, not with anger, but with the quiet force of undeniable reality. My peace, my joy, my freedom were absolute. Sometimes silence is protection. It's a shield you build around your heart, brick by painful brick, guarding your peace, creating a sanctuary where your true self can finally breathe. Sometimes it's punishment, a profound absence that forces others to see what they took for granted, to confront the void they created, the stark emptiness left by their own actions. That Christmas, I didn't need revenge. I just needed a voice. A way to speak a truth they refused to hear, a truth they actively suppressed. And when I used it, I didn't shout. I let the world listen for itself. I let the truth, raw and undeniable, echo in the vast, unforgiving chambers of the internet, a silent, powerful testament to my existence and their profound oversight. Some families celebrate love. They nurture it. They cherish it. They protect it with every fiber of their being, valuing the bonds above all else. Others just perform it, their lives a meticulously choreographed display of affection for public consumption, a fragile facade built on silent cruelty, on unspoken expectations and one-sided sacrifice. And when the curtain fell on their perfect performance, when the lights went out, mine didn't like the echo. They didn't like the profound, deafening truth that reverberated through the empty spaces I left behind, a void that could no longer be filled by my invisible labor. Have you ever been left out by the people who raised you? Have you found your voice in the silence? Tell me, where are you listening from right now? Drop it in the comments. I read every one.